Good evening, everyone. So happy to see all of you. Hope you have had a fantastic day. I know I have. My name is Samori, and it's my pleasure to once again bring to you the silent minority. With me, as always, is Hudson. Say
Yeah,
hello, brother.
yeah,
We got a fantastic slate of topics for you, and I want to go ahead and just dive right in with first and foremost biggest daughter. My heart really, really breaks for this. I have a daughter of my own, and I'm putting in a lot of work, a lot of effort to try to make sure that she is hopefully going to have a comfortable life and that she is equipped with the skills and the resources she needs in order to be able to make something of herself. And I feel like that's exactly what Biggie wanted to do for his daughter. And in a lot of ways, he succeeded. She has a lot of resources and tools that are not available to most women, let alone most black women. And I don't know, from the outside looking in, it kind of seems like she's squandering it. So apparently, her baby daddy was driving earlier this week on a suspended license and got pulled over by the police for being parked in an intersection. And the brother knew when they pulled him over that the jig was up. So instead of, I don't know, just letting them arrest him or getting out the car and trying to make a run for it, he decides to try to speed off when there are literally people in the street in front of him. Like there's video of this, and he hit a woman who was pushing a stroller that had her child in it. That woman was already in the street, damn near in the middle of the street when this brother pulled off. You can't do that. You just made a bad situation 10 times worse. 10 times worse. I forgot all the charges. I think they're hitting this brother with like 17 counts. Yeah, it's a 17 count complaint with crimes that now include reckless endangerment, unlawful fleeing of a police officer, which he would have gotten anyway, and then endangering the welfare of a child. Bro, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Now, to me, the obvious answer is in a situation like that, she should have just let this brother, she should have just supported him from the outside. Been like, baby, I'm so sorry this happened. I love you so much. I hope that I'm gonna get you a really good lawyer and we're gonna try to figure this out. But that's not what she did. She was determined to get this brother out of prison. So she put up her $1.5 million home to bail this fool out of prison. That, I'm sorry, does not make any sense. And as a father, it breaks my heart because this is like the worst fear. you know, the worst fear that you put all this effort and knowledge and resources into your daughter only for some fool to come along and basically take all of it so that he can run off and do his escapades. I mean,
Whoa,
it's just
whoa,
hard to
whoa,
watch.
whoa, whoa. Okay, I gotta break in here.
Nah,
Wait,
man.
first
Everything
off,
I'm saying is facts.
first off, how do we know how much knowledge that Biggie really imparted into his daughter?
We
Okay,
don't.
he was on the road a lot. He was performing a lot.
We know
Even
about the
even in his
resources he gave her. She's got a
even
$1.5 million home, brother.
resources ain't teaching your kids. You know, a dollar, $100 bill can't teach your kids, how to navigate this world. Okay, it can give you a good start. It can give you a place where it can give you some time to learn how to navigate this world, but it doesn't do it on its own.
hmm
Okay, so we don't know how, and even in his the movie that came out about him, the not the various biopics or whatever, but the actual movie that actually went to theaters and
hmm
actually was popular. It
Yep.
it even mentioned in there how Faith Evans, the character he played, was like, you know, it's not all about just giving your daughter money. You actually have to spend time with your child. So, I mean, I think that's questionable to say whether he imparted all this knowledge or not. We don't know that
I know
part.
he imparted all these resources. I know he set her up to have a very, very comfortable life. Which, yo, come on now. How many women have a $1.5 million home that aren't married, that
But
didn't get it because of their husbands? Come on now.
no, I feel that. I feel that. But I'm just saying that we can't assume what what was taught to her and what wasn't. Right? She got some money. Okay, that's great. But a person can easily be parted from their money. Right?
Clearly. And this is the problem.
Well, I want to go back to something you mentioned about this guy and the part about the suspended license. And I want to say a lot of reports are saying an expired license, right? And I want to make that distinction because suspended makes it sound like for whatever reason he did some dirt on his current license and they had to suspend it. It sounds like it may have just expired. So I want to make that distinction.
You
Okay.
believe this nonsense? Nobody pulls off away from the police because their license is expired. Come
No,
on now.
no,
Come
you're
on
right.
now.
Absolutely not. And I'm not saying that. Trust me, there's no excuses that I'm giving this guy for running over,
Nah,
three people.
nah.
There's no excuse for giving him
He
for that.
knew the jig was up. And I understand, look, you out here, you doing dirt. I understand, brother, but you can't be running over people while you're trying to get away from the police. Like the whole point is to not do more things that are going to bring heat on you.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that his story is one and done, right? I think the real story here is, and what's been going around has been uh, uh, the backlash that Miss Wallace has received for putting up this
Deservedly
putting up this house.
so. Deservedly so, brother. I'm sorry. If something like this happens to me 18 years down the line, I'm gonna be crying. I'm gonna be in a puddle, bro. Like, what can you do?
But
You try
why does
so
she
hard.
deserve this backlash? Why does she deserve this for putting up her home? Many people have put up their home to 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 place a bond, and those same people would have still put their home if they had more expensive homes and their people had more expensive bonds. It's been done before.
I ain't never heard of no white folks putting up no $1 million home in order to bail out one of they black sheep of the family. It's only it's brothers and sisters who seem to destroy themselves trying to protect people who have no interest in protecting themselves.
White people get better lines of credit than we do, and are able
But
to
but
to
you
do
know
that.
what? But you know what the reason for that is because we are not setting up generational wealth. And this woman was put in a position to be able to at least start the wheels of doing that. She was placed in a position that was far ahead of what most black women are in.
And
Like you
that's
have
great.
to treat
But why
the
does she
position you're in
deserve this backlash?
responsibly. Huh?
Why is this assumed that this is not responsible? I mean, what is
Stop it, bro. Stop
why?
it.
But why? I'm
Stop
asking.
it. Hey, what could possibly be looked at as responsible about it? You have a boyfriend who you already probably knew was into dirt, was into certain things that he shouldn't be doing. He ran away from the cops for a reason. He ran over people while trying to get away from the cops. This brother is going to jail. His lawyer came out and was like, "Well, you only have the side of the police." And usually I'd be with that. I'd be like, "You're right." And the police lie sometimes, things of that nature. But the videotape shows you running over people. There's no getting around that. I don't care what the police did. You almost ran over a woman who was pushing a stroller. There's just no excuse. There's no excuse. And so now you put yourself into a situation for a person who is almost guaranteed to go to jail. Why? Why? Your daughter was supposed to get that house. Like, yes, that house is yours, but you're supposed to build upon what you have so that then you can put your children in an even better situation. You're not supposed to take it and then squander it. And
Look, first
come on
off,
now.
looking at information on her, at least the little that's out there, right?
Uh-huh.
It doesn't appear that she has squandered, the investment that her late father has put in. She's
How
seems
you come to that
she's
conclusion?
it, her net worth is estimated at 20 million.
Uh-huh.
I mean, she has a successful clothing brand. She's a fashion designer. I mean, and she does some very smart things by doing an annual on the day of his death and on his birthday. She does annual T-shirts in honor of Biggie. You know, she's making a grip off of that each and every year. She's actually doing some smart business. You don't just Biggie did not leave her 20 million.
Mhm.
Okay,
That's a
she
fact.
has built off of that.
Mhm.
So I think when I look at a lot of the assumptions that are getting made online about this situation, one of those assumptions is that losing this home is going to break her. And
Right.
now, admittingly, losing a piece of real estate with that kind of price tag is still a hit, but
That's what
it's
I'm
not.
saying. I'm
But
not
it's
saying
not
it's gonna
something
break
that's
her.
going to break her. But a lot of people are acting like she's just wandering away. What? So why is this assuming that she's wandering away? Let's take this whole thing that he did, right?
Mhm.
Now let's take out for a second that those people weren't in the crosswalk,
Mhm.
right? Now let's forget the heinous part for a second of him running over these people. Very
Mhm.
heinous, right? But let's forget that part for a second. And let's say he just panicked. Maybe he did have a little illegal substance in the car and he just panicked, right? Because I'm going to make an assumption, and the assumption is that he didn't know those people in the crosswalk from Adam. The
Right.
assumption is he didn't look before he left. He did a fight or flight and decided to fly and didn't look to make sure, that's what he did. And so I'm not thinking to myself that he was a hardened criminal. We don't know. We don't know what dirt you're talking about
Yeah.
because their lives have been relatively private.
Mhm.
They have went to painstaking, lengths to make sure that their whole thing is kind of private. So we don't know that much about him. We don't know that he's been in trouble with the law. We don't know that he doesn't want to marry Miss Wallace. That was another assumption a lot of people have made. I'm not going to do this for a man that don't even want to marry me. We
Yeah, we
don't
don't know
know that
that.
he didn't want to marry
I'm not
her.
making that assumption.
We
Mm-mm.
don't know that, but this is where a lot of this outrage against her for doing this is coming from. There are a lot of like I have been going through post after post after post for a week and just watching all these people. Let me read off some of the things that they were assuming that Biggie would not like it. Right, that's an assumption.
Oh,
We, we,
I'm definitely making that assumption.
we don't know
I'm
how
definitely
Biggie
in that bucket.
we don't know how Biggie would have felt about this young man. We don't know. We don't know.
Oh,
Biggie may have liked this young man. Biggie may have been, let's get him out. We don't know. It can be assumed that Biggie never met the young man. So we don't know, right? Assuming her friends must not have advised her that this was a dumb move. I'm sure her friends were all up in her face about what to do about this. We don't know. Assuming she's going to be homeless if he flees and she doesn't get this bond back,
yeah.
right? Assuming that like no one has took the time to look up actually who Miss Wallace is.
Mhm.
And so she has her own money that she's made off her fashion brand. There's just tons of stuff that people have been assuming about this whole situation. And I just don't, I'm not, if I take all those assumptions away, I'm left with a young man who panicked, and a young man who tried to get out of the situation, right? And he did a bonehead move,
Mhm.
right? And it was nearly much more catastrophic than it turned out to be. I mean, thank goodness it looks like the mother and her child had minor injuries. But I couldn't imagine the mental stress of getting. I could only imagine. I'd be scared to cross the street for years maybe after something like that happens. So mentally is probably more stress they've gotten from this situation, right? The delivery man, hopefully he won't have to have a permanent limp or something worse from this, because I believe his leg was very severely injured from this. But you know, I saw a young man in this video that panicked for whatever reason. And I think it's something as simple as he had some drugs in his car, in the car. And you're right, Samora. That should not have made him just go bonkers and just flee. You know, I doubt he had a dead body in there. But again, I don't know the young man. He could have. You know, I do not know this young man. And no one else does either, really.
We're going to do an update on this story when more details and facts come out. And this brother's whole criminal record comes out, because you know that's coming. And I'm willing to bet that my perspective, my side of the story, my take on this whole situation is it's coming out to be correct.
Do you think this criminal record wouldn't have came out by now?
Maybe not. Maybe not.
What would they be waiting on? What would they be waiting on?
It's an open and shut case for them, so they don't have to. This is not one of them things where they have to prove to the public why they took this guy in. The video is out there, so they can take their time. There's no rush whatsoever to explain why this brother needs to be in jail.
Maybe.
So now we're going to do a follow up.
I know we're running long on this topic, longer than we probably do. But there's one other aspect I want to talk about, right, of this, and then this is from the police aspect. And again, no excuses for him running over these people. No excuse. But I'm going to ask, why are we telling someone to get out of the car on an expired license? Why are we doing that? Why are we?
I don't think. I don't agree with you that the license is expired.
So a lot of reports are saying expired. Some are saying suspended. But even
I'm looking at the Yahoo report and it says suspended. And the thing is, again, if your license is expired, you don't flee the police. Like, you just say, "Oh man, my bad. I didn't even realize it was expired." Blah 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 blah.
Again, I'm not saying it's an excuse for him trying to flee or do that, but I'm asking, and this is just totally separate from it. Why are we asking somebody to get out of the car on an expired license, on a suspended license? Why are we asking that?
You asked them to get out of the car on a suspended license because licenses are suspended for a reason. Like, it's not like that just magically happens. Just because your license is expired doesn't mean that they then suspend it. A suspended license is something totally separate. That means you did something and they were like, you should not be allowed to drive a car anymore. So if the local government there has informed you that you should not be driving a car within city limits, and then the police find you driving a car, yeah, they're gonna tell you to come up out that car.
I mean, I don't know. I guess depending on what it's suspended for, because you know Chicago here, they'll suspend you just for having a speeding ticket and you never paid it.
This is a fact.
You know, and to me, I have to say, and if we're talking about expired, which MSN, I believe, and a couple other major news outlets said expired, right? If it's expired, why is anybody getting out of the car? Why?
See, I don't agree with you on this. And even in the example that you talked about, yes, it's true. There are a bunch of people who get suspended license because of speeding tickets. But we also have a bunch of people who refuse to drive under the speed limit, who feel like they should be able to do 70 miles per hour down the street, and that is just their business and that it doesn't affect anybody else when it actually does. There's a reason people keep racking up these speeding tickets. So then you racking up these speeding tickets, you can't pay them, and the government tells you, yo, you keep doing this, and we're putting out these fines to keep people from doing it. You not only are you doing it, but you can't even pay the fines, bro. You can't drive. You can't drive because you can't pay the cost to be the boss. You want to speed around everywhere, but you ain't got the money to actually do that. Like, so when the police pull you over, they say, get up out the car. If you know you don't have the money for speeding tickets, stop driving over the speed limit. And look, this is coming from someone who completely understands. Chicago does everything in its power to bleed people dry, especially in the black community. They love putting up those red cameras in the black community to catch us, to ticket us, to get money up out of us. I completely understand it. I completely think that's messed up, and I would love to see a lot more of those cameras go down. But we know the reality of the situation. I would like to drive faster. I don't, because I don't want to have to pay all those speeding tickets. If you know you don't have the money for it, stop speeding. It's not like they suspend you over one. You've got to have three or four unpaid tickets on your record before they say, okay, you've got a problem. So if you get one or you get two and you know you can't pay either one of them, slow down. If you're not disciplined enough for that, you probably shouldn't be driving. Like, let's keep it a buck.
Here's a scenario I'm talking about, right?
Hmm.
Let's say you're a young black man with a hoodie on and you're driving a beater car and your license expired yesterday and you get pulled over. And you and I both know a lot of cops out here are going to tell you get out the car.
Hmm.
Why are they getting out the car for that?
Yeah, but that's totally different. Again, there is a difference between your license being expired and your license being suspended. I agree that if your license just expired, which happens to everybody and most people, you've been driving for a few years, you'll go through a situation where you're like, because who's looking at the expiration date on your driver's license all the time? So that happens. Expired is different from suspended. Suspended means like, yo, you did something and now it's suspended. It's not the same.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that yes, you saw a report that said suspended,
Yep.
right?
Uh-huh.
I'm seeing some reports that say expired.
That, and again, I'm saying again, you
So,
do not speed away from the cops if your license is just expired. Who does that? Nobody
but I'm
does
not
that, by
asking
the
about that part. What
way.
I'm asking is about the police response if it's just an expired license. And you and I both know that a lot of cops are going to ask you to get out the car
Uh-huh.
for an expired license. Why?
That's I don't feel like they should, but I don't feel like that's the situation. If
But
it
it
was
could,
just expired, he wouldn't have sped off.
it could,
Even if the cops ask you to get out the car. If the issue is that your license is expired, you're not pulling off. You're pulling off because you know that they're about to take you to jail for whatever reason and you don't want to go to jail. Because if you go to jail, you're not sure when you're going to see the light of day again. You don't
so here's
speed
what I'm
off
saying.
because
Here,
you're going to have to spend a night in jail maybe because your license is expired and they caught you driving.
here's what I'm saying, right? Here's
Mhm.
what I'm saying. Let's say for a second his license was expired. Let's say that for a second. Let's
Yep.
say he did have, let's say, an illegal substance in his car.
Uh-huh.
What I'm saying here is that if the issue was an expired license, I don't think he should have been pulled out of
I agree with that.
the car. And subsequently, the reasoning behind him pulling off is null and void at that point, right? Again, I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just wondering why are we finding reasons to pull people out of cars? To me, somebody driving on an expired license is not a reasonable suspicion that he has something in the car he's hiding or that he's hiding anything else.
Mhm.
So,
I
and
agree
I
with
think
that.
once the story gets a little bit more, because like you said, I've seen a couple of reports that said suspended. I've seen a couple of reports that said expired.
Mhm.
So that, like I said, and that's why I wanted to make that distinction early on in this, is that I think we got to find that part out because I'm going to wonder why he was pulled out of the car if it was indeed just a case of an expired license. You
Mhm.
know, I think we oh, what was that story? It was some other story that came out before where someone had it. Well, let me not get into that. There's countless stories about that where it's
Hmm.
just meaningless stuff to go. The woman in Georgia who got arrested, right? Meaningless stuff. She wouldn't sign a citation,
Hmm.
right? So what she did was not as bad as her not signing the citation, because for not signing she went to jail.
Hmm.
For not signing a piece of paper she went to jail,
She went to
right?
jail because he pissed the officer off.
Well, yeah, but he was able to use the excuse of she didn't sign, so I'm taking her to jail.
Hmm.
That's absolutely ridiculous to me that we're finding reasons just to lock people up over pettiness. If you refuse to sign, increase the fine. That's it. That's as simple as it can get.
Nah,
Why do we need to throw someone in jail over this pettiness?
I see. I don't agree with you there. So on the one hand, absolutely, I think it's deeply unfortunate. This country loves to lock people up. It especially loves to lock black people up. And you have these local governments across the country who are basically balancing their budgets by throwing black people into prison. The more of us they can lock up, the more they can fine us, the more they can keep us in the criminal justice system, the more that they're going to money they're going to be able to make. And there's a whole lot of politicians who have no problems making their bank in that manner. That's all messed up. And I would certainly agree with you and would love to see more things done about this. At the same time, at the end of the day, the police have a job to do, and you have a responsibility. When they are doing their job properly, they should be respected. There have certainly been many times where we have seen on film where police were doing their jobs improperly and people had to stand up to them, and I'm all about that. That is not the case that you're talking about there. That brother, he didn't pull out no guns on them, he didn't pull out no tasers when he was asking them to sign that citation. And from everything that I saw, he did his job professionally. And then over and over and over and over again, this woman is telling him what she's not going to do with no basis of the law. She's not saying this is not lawful and here's why. She just doesn't want to do it. And so she's telling the officer, well, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to do it. That is not the way an interaction with a police officer works. And it's not like she did it just once and then he was like, oh, I'm going to take you to jail. Again and again and again and again, he asked her to sign the citation. And again and again and again and again, she's just like, I'm not going to do that. I refuse. Like,
See, my question has nothing to do with the officer. It's
uh
why
huh.
is that a law?
Right. I
I have
agree
nothing
with
to do
that.
with the officer. What I'm asking, why is it?
Mm,
Why
hmm.
why are we sentencing people to jail?
Hmm.
Why does he have that legal authority to take someone to jail for not signing a citation?
Hmm.
It's not even a legal authority to take them to jail for the citation, unless she did not leave when he told her to leave, but they were
see,
detained.
see,
So
see,
why
I'm not
is that a
sure.
law?
And to be honest with you, I'm not sure that he had to. I'm not sure that there's a law that says, like, hey, if you don't sign this, you have to go to jail. Like, something tells
He
me,
has discretion. He has
yeah,
discretion,
he made
but
a decision.
but
So to me, it is still about the officer because essentially the officer made a decision. He probably could have let her go. He probably could have been like, you know what? It ain't that big of a deal. Just go on about your business. Y'all know y'all got a ticket. The government, they'll be sending you something. He made the decision that no, I'm going to arrest your ass because you done put me through the ringer and I don't appreciate the way you have treated me.
I I looked it up. You know,
Hmm.
they were required to sign.
Hmm.
I mean, so you know, I'm sure he could have did a workaround on the ticket. Hey, I
Hmm.
forgot to make it. Well, not really. He had his body cam on, but I'm
Right.
sure he could have did some type of workaround, maybe. But I mean, ultimately, her signature did need to be on the citation.
Mm,
So again, it comes back to my question: why do we want to keep locking people up over pettiness? That's petty,
to
you know.
enrich
So
people.
And this again, if he was on and if he was on suspended license, then I have to see suspended for what before I can say before again I can say it's yeah, I understand taking them out of the car,
Hmm.
but definitely if it just expired, I got a problem with that.
Yeah.
Why is he coming out of the car for an expired license?
Hmm.
Again, now I'm gonna repeat this. No excuse for him running up, for him trying to flee the scene and run over three people. No
Right.
excuse. You always have to be on your square and handle things responsibly as you possibly can. But I just want to know why do you need to get out of the car? I want to make sure of that later when more on the story does come out.
That's a legitimate question, and I actually do have one more question regarding this. If his license is actually suspended, then I assume that he knew that it was suspended. He might have even known that it was expired. If you know that your license is suspended or expired, why would you do something illegal? Like the police pulled him over, it came to him in the first place because he was parked in the middle of an intersection. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? If you know you're a criminal, if you know that any interaction with the police is probably going to make you speed off because you're terrified of going to jail, why are you doing something illegal in daylight in the middle of a busy intersection?
Well, you know how I feel about people who stop in the street
I'm
to,
saying.
to go. I do believe they should go to jail, and I'm a bit biased on it, so it's a good thing I'm not responsible for making the laws on this, but I do believe they should go to jail for that. While I'm talking about this, but
Yo,
you know,
like, to me, that's so dumb. Like, I'm sorry. I know we all the details aren't out, but I'm convinced this dude is a criminal. Like, you sped off for a reason. You've been afraid of something like this, right? Like, why are you parked in the middle of an intersection, fool? You could have taken 30 extra seconds, parked your car, and you wouldn't have had to deal with all this. And this is what I'm talking about. People who want to feel like, yo, I could just do anything I want. There are no rules that apply to me. Like,
well,
no.
now his lawyer did say there's more to this story, and that's what I'm really waiting on. I'm waiting to hear what this lawyer
Harvey
has to
Weinstein's lawyer said he was innocent and none of these girls were harmed. Like, come on now. We know how
say.
these dudes do.
I know, but
Stop it.
I got to see this
In
whole
fact,
thing
didn't he just
unfold.
win an appeal? Now that I think about it, we're not even gonna get into all that. That's a whole nother topic. But nah, we don't decide about situations based on what the lawyer says. All right. Moving right along. Something else that involves the police, but that I found hilarious. So apparently, a Chicago police department recruit has been arrested in Schiller Park because she was pulled over and they told her to get out of the car and she started fighting with officers. It happened at 2 a.m. on Saturday. Denisse Balseca was pulled over after she hit a curb on the 4100 block of Gray Street in Schiller Park. The police um, reported that she had red eyes and that they could smell alcohol on her breath. She fought vigorously with them to the point that they had to put a hold on her in order to actually get her up out of the car and into their police car. When they finally brought her back to the department, they showed her pictures of the injuries she had caused the other officers. And reportedly, her response was, how else was I supposed to get away? Oh,
Makes sense
holy
to me.
smokes.
Makes total sense. How else
Make
was she supposed to do it?
Yo, makes sense to me. I feel you, Sister Hudson. What are your thoughts, man?
Man, so what is probably going to get overlooked in this story is that this wasn't just her. This was a dynamic duo. Okay, her when that stop happened, her buddy on the passenger side was the first one to get out, and that's when the officers noticed like a one of them one of them cans of some type of, them drinks, them fruity cocktail drinks
Hot
that be in the
juice.
food. Yeah, pretty much. So, apparently, they were both with the shit. The passenger just got out and just kicked the whole thing off, right?
Yo.
I mean, I thought that was real interesting. And I'm jumping ahead here, but what's really interesting to me about this case, and I don't mean to jump ahead, it's really funny because I think blue on blue crime is an epidemic that needs to be solved in this country. I don't know when those people can get their shit together and stop hurting each other. But anyway, it must be how they was raised, single parent households. Um,
Yo.
but the biggest interesting part to me is how the punishments got laid down here, right? It was very clear. And I am so shocked that the Schiller Park Police Department has allowed this narrative to come out like it did and to just have this open bias, right? Open bias toward the police recruit, right?
Mhm.
Because basically, when you read the stories, her and her passenger both did the same shit,
Mhm.
right? They both assaulted officers. They
Mhm.
both resisted arrest. They were both drunk. They were
Mhm.
both drunk, both of
Yeah.
them, right? The recruit should have got the worst of it because she was the one actually driving.
Mhm.
She was the one actually driving, right? So, but as it turns out, the punishment that she gets are basically citations, while her buddy is facing actual criminal charges.
Crazy.
And I thought, are you kidding? You're just openly showing this bias out here, right here in front of us all. Just
Mhm.
basically saying, even as a police recruit, she's only been a recruit for a month, and
Mhm.
she's able to get out from under this already. Like, this is crazy.
When you were assaulting other police officers. Like, we're used to seeing this when they assault citizens. Like, hey, they don't care. They're like, let that police officer go. We don't care what happens to the citizens here. We're not here to protect the citizens. We're used to that. All
Yeah,
right. I'm not used to an officer clearly assaulted other, technically multiple officers, and nothing happens.
man.
Nothing happened. It to me, it feels like Chicago PD basically stomped all over Schiller Park PD. And they was like, we don't really give a fuck about you guys. Your officers got bruised up, they'll be all right. Bring our girl back home. She
Hey,
good. She one of ours. She with us. Yo, who who is she fucking?
that's
Who is
real,
she with? She on the right dick. Whoever this guy is, whoo, this guy got pulled.
really.
Because
Because
there's just no other way to look at this situation. This is biased as hell. She should not still be a police officer. How can you batter other police officers and still eventually become an officer? I don't get it. There's been no report whatsoever about her career's over. This is it for her. There's been nothing. Nothing.
an internal investigation has been opened,
Come on
and
now.
they're looking into the events
Come on now.
as they
Come on
transpired.
now. What do you need to investigate? She beat their ass. And they're
Man,
officers and she beat them up while she was drunk as hell. There's nothing to investigate. Like the another police department is telling you what occurred. You're not investigating anything. You've already made your decision.
well, I mean, it's crazy to me some of the things that she's listed as saying. I mean, basically she's saying I don't have to present any ID and things like that. I mean, like, really,
Insanity.
and it's not tough to believe how a lot of police just try to overlook the laws when they're out here supposedly doing their jobs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's so crazy. Even as a recruit, you're looking at the level of oh, what's the word for it? Entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
The level of entitlement. And you got to ask yourself, did she come that way? Or is this learned behavior, even in the short month that she has been? Because I have known some police officers very well, some Chicago police officers. And here's what all the Chicago police officers I have had extended conversations with have in common. They think every other law enforcement agency are dumbasses, right? I've heard them say the FBI are dumbasses. I've heard them say DEA agents are dumbasses. I've heard them say all the suburban cops are dumbasses. They do not respect any other authority within this country, right? That is the one thing that every Chicago police officer I have talked with in extended conversations have had in common. And so I got is this has to be learned. This has to be learned behavior that they go through in whatever what hazing they do for the police force, whatever
Initiation.
learning, initiation, whatever. It's
Mm-hmm.
immediately first thing you got to know. Everyone else are dumbasses. We, the CPD, are the ones that really know what the fuck is going on around here. Okay?
Basically.
Get that through
Basically.
your head right now. Like, is that the first thing they do?
Yo.
What made her think that she was going to get out of this situation?
What you
Right?
mean think? She knew. She has. Basically. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to wait until internal audit officially
Mm,
announces that they see no wrongdoing. But she
mm.
has gotten away with it. She she basically, "Hey, I can drive drunk in your area, beat two of your police officers, go back home like nothing happened." That,
No matter what, she's won because all she got were citations.
crazy.
And even if and make no mistake, even if the CPD fires her, which I think they're just waiting to see how much attention this whole thing
Mm-hmm.
gets, right? But
Mm-hmm.
even if they were to fire her, she can go out the next day, get a job with the Illinois State Troopers. She could go to another suburb and get a job out there, possibly Schiller Park, where she just maybe she lives close around there, so she could possibly. Hey, they already know how well she fights, right? So they just say, yeah, we'll pick you up,
Yo, we'll put you on drugs and gangs.
Oh man, she claimed to only have one beer.
Come on now.
Like there's no way.
Come on
Like,
now.
are you kidding me?
I love it. I love
One
it.
beer. That's all you had? Come on,
Yeah,
man. Come on.
it's wild. It's wild, bro. It's wild.
Oh,
Let's move on to our next one, which unfortunately isn't nearly as fun. So, Black Pastor, and I guess this happened back in May, but it's just now coming out. Uh, Pastor Michael Jennings, Childersburg, Alabama, was doing a favor for his neighbor. Apparently, his neighbor was out of town, and they asked him to water their grass while they were away. And he said, sure, no problem. Well, as he was
very
watering their
neighborly of them.
right,
Very
very
neighborly.
neighborly of them. Ain't nobody asked me to do a damn thing while I was out of town,
'Cause
but I
I
digress.
ain't getting up early to water plants for
Come on
somebody.
now.
I barely get up early to water my own. So, but anyway,
Come on now. Uh Apparently, white woman in the neighborhood saw him watering plants, didn't recognize him, and called the police. Now, here's my thing. All right. Let's say I know some people across the street. Okay. I look out my window. I see a black person in their yard that I don't know. All right. I'm like, oh, let me look. Let me be sure. They might be trying to take something. And then I see that this man is watering their plants. All right. This is not, I do not then move to call 911, even if I don't know the brother. All right. I'm not going to call the police on him when he's standing outside, hand on his hip, watering plants in their backyard. Like, if I'm concerned, I might come over, have a conversation. Or as a woman, maybe you don't feel comfortable coming over trying to have that conversation with a male. You could call another man in the neighborhood and say, hey, this looks kind of weird. You want to go over and talk to them? You called the police? She called the police. The man tells them, I'm just a neighbor trying to do a neighborly thing. They don't believe him. They believe, I don't know what the fuck as a police officer do you think he might be doing when you see this? Like, oh, he's watering their plants. Next, he'll be kicking in their door. We better arrest him. Like, what? What is the thinking? What is the rationale here? I don't get it, but they don't believe the brother, and they proceed to arrest him. The little white lady realizes she made a mistake. She comes running out. Wait. You know what? I think I made a mistake. I think I messed up. And his wife comes running out down the street with his identification to show that he lives there. But the brother is livid. He's not only livid at his treatment, but he's also livid because the police didn't believe him when he said he lived there. But that white woman came out, and as soon as she said he lived there, the police took her word as gospel. Like them officers, they needed a white person to tell them the truth, because brothers will say anything. So, but a white person said this. Well, it must be true. He's suing the police department, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I'm out here watering plants, and y'all think I'm finna rob somebody? Come on, man. Come on. So, what were your thoughts?
I'm a little bit torn on this one, right? So let me say the first part, because I'm the first to criticize police response.
Uh-huh.
Right? I'm one of the first. I have no problem with that.
Okay.
But here's the first part, right? I need to know what was said on that 911 call, and I'm gonna try to assume something here. What I'm gonna try to assume is that this woman looked out, and because maybe he was just getting started, so maybe he went around to the side of their house to get the hose.
Right.
And maybe she didn't actually see him watering at the time. Maybe she took a quick glimpse out, saw someone going around the side of the house, and instead of looking further or looking some more, she just decided to call the cops, right? So I'm gonna try to make the assumption maybe she did not see him watering, right? Mm-hmm. So I wonder what was said in that 911, like what is being said here. But when the officers arrive, right, they and this is where I get torn, right? What do they do? What do they do? Yes, you have this guy who's now watering, right? For all they know, he saw the cops coming down the street, picked up the hose that was laying there, and just started watering. I mean, people leave their hoses out all the time. That shit happens. Mm-hmm. So I can't sit. They look for. I don't know how much craziness that they have seen, right, or that cops in general have seen when it comes to people trying to get out of something, right? Mm-hmm. So I gotta ask, and I think this is some kind of a consensus that because it always comes back around to this presenting of the ID. It always comes back around. The moment where things really go south is I need to see some ID. Mm-hmm. And we have to decide, is a neighbor calling the cops and saying someone is not supposed to be over there or it looks suspicious? Is that good enough? And I'm not talking about the law, what's said in the law right now, because obviously a lot of people don't agree with what's in the law. And a lot of cops, on the other side of it, don't seem to care what's in the law. I'm talking about we have to, as a people, together, all of us, need to come to some sort of a reasonable consensus as to when and where an ID should be presented and when do a person needs to identify themselves. Now, I got to say, if someone called, and this was obviously, someone did call, these police didn't just show up, someone did call. The woman came out and admitted it. She was the one who called, right? After some prodding, after talking a little bit, she finally admitted on there, yes, But, at what point is it okay for them to ask for the ID? And I gotta say, if someone called on some suspicion, I think it's reasonable for them to ask for ID. What are they supposed to do? Just leave?
So, I agree as well. I feel like if a neighbor calls the police, that the police here in Chicago should ask for identification. In Alabama, the law is you do not have to provide your identification just because the police ask for it. That is the law there. And that brother knew that. And he did not have his ID on him. And he did not see any reason why he should have to provide ID. He said, I'm not committing a crime. Therefore, I should not have to provide identification. And then the police proceeded to try to arrest this brother because he would not be able to provide identification. So I think it's an unfortunate circumstance where that brother, I feel, has every right, every justification to feel insulted and feel like the police officers did him wrong. I also feel like the law on the books puts police officers kind of in a bad situation because if your neighbor has called and said that this person is attempting to break into this house, and then you come over and you see this person and you demand to see identification, and then they say no, and they have a legal right to say no, what do you do then? Like, do you just
Exactly.
stand around
But
until he leaves? Like, what is the end result there? But so I'm with you on that. However, the end result can't be okay. Well, we'll just arrest you since you refuse to give us identification. That's not the way. That's not the way that works. The law on the books allows me to not present ID if I do not want to. You cannot then arrest me for taking advantage of my rights. You are violating my rights by doing that.
yeah, and they always throw those loopholes in there because they charged them not with for not presenting ID. They charged them with obstructing their investigation, right?
Right.
So they
Hmm.
always find there's always a loophole somewhere in there to try to get around
Hmm.
that crazy law of not having to present identification,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because and and a lot of states have similar type of laws where a cop has to have the typical is that a cop has to have some sort of suspicion that you committed a crime
Hmm.
before they ask for your identification, before you have to present it, right? And
Hmm.
this is where it gets bogged down, right? You know, the defining of this suspicion, right? Um, and again, that's where I say, we have to do a better job here, and we have to come to some sort of a consensus because if a neighbor called and said someone was on my property,
Hmm.
I want them identified.
Hmm.
You called them as a suspicious person. Okay, I hope they identified themselves. Who were they?
I
Because
agree.
how you gonna contact me and tell me? Yeah, because I'm gonna ask you where you were standing right there. How do you not know who it was? Right? It's a natural question. I would ask a police officer who called and said a suspicious person was on your. We talked to this person, and we ended up letting them go. Okay, who was it, officer? I don't know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it's a natural question I'm going to ask. I'm going to wonder. But see, when we're actually in the situation, we always think of it in terms of I know who I am.
Hmm.
And so that's the other side of it. Yes, the Pastor Jennings knows who he is. Absolutely. But
Hmm.
they don't.
Right.
They don't. And we could say all day, and this is another thing about it. Police have to get to know the people that they're patrolling. And I'm a big fan of neighborhood watches in every neighborhood. I'm a big fan of block clubs on every block.
How do you not know who the local pastor is? Like, considering that this little white lady called the police on this man because essentially because he was black. All
Because
right.
he's black.
Let's just keep it real. Since that's what occurred, I've got to assume there's not very many black pastors in this area, right? He more than likely he is the black pastor. How do the police not know him? Like, I'm kind of confused about that, to be honest with you. Like,
Yeah.
huh? And
No one
apparently,
wants a beat.
apparently, this lady knows him, but didn't realize she knew him until like later on. And then she was like, "Oh my God, I made a mistake." Blah 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 blah. Like,
Yeah, she saw a black man. That was
right,
it.
right. An old black man as well. This dude looks like he's in his like late 40s, 50s, maybe
Yeah,
even older. So it's not like it's some little young thug who's finna kick in your door and take your stuff. Like you saw a little old man watering somebody's plants across the street and you call the police?
yeah.
Damn.
But and here's what I really don't agree with. Right? I agree. I agree that they should detain them until finding out who it was. I agree with that.
Mhm.
What I don't agree, and I understand him taking his stand. He was perfectly willing to take his stand. He was perfectly willing to go to jail for it. I
Mhm.
understand his stance.
Mhm.
So I understood both the cop and both Jennings here, right? Here's what I don't understand. Once you find out what it is, and this is where I had a problem with. Why go through the whole charge thing? Just let it go.
Mhm.
I think it was enough. You, you're not going to convince this pastor to follow your demands of giving ID just because you decide to charge him with some misdemeanor or some
Mhm.
small petty crime, right? If you're not going to get him to do it after handcuffing him, after threatening to take him downtown or wherever their Mayberry police station was, if they're not going to do, if you're not going to convince them, then what's this whole
Mhm.
charge for? Just let it go. Just let it go. And just stop it. You're only alienating them to go forward with this lawsuit, and they drop the charge anyway.
Yep. What other
So
choice did they have?
why take up court time, and why it just leads to the whole you're just doing it because you're mad he mouthed off at you. You're mad
Mhm.
because he defied you.
Mhm.
And I think that's the most unprofessional way to police. Is what caused so many problems in our communities, because the moment someone says, and again, it leads back to this ID. The moment someone doesn't want to give you ID, these guys go animalistic.
Mhm.
It's any order they give in general that if you don't follow it, they just go crazy. It's
Mhm.
like they turn on, they go from 0 to 100 in an instant.
Here's my problem though. Like, sure, there are times when people don't want to do certain things because they feel like it's their right. And that they have the right to say, "No, I don't want to let you have my ID," or "No, I don't want to say who I am." But I would venture to say most of the time when police officers are dealing with that type of individual, it's because they have something to hide. It's because there's a very, very specific reason they don't want to have interactions with the police. And see, I yeah, yeah, they go ballistic, right? They get angry, but I also feel like it's like the shark that smells blood. They're like, oh, we got one. There's something in there. If we keep poking, if we keep sifting through, we'll find out what the issue is. But there's something there that we're gonna charge you on. And so to me, it's like six of one and half a dozen in the other. You want police officers who are able to sniff out and find criminals, right? Well, then there are certain things that they're going to pick up on that is going to catch their attention. It's going to make them react. I don't know if you can really fault them for that, to be honest with you.
Well, it maybe it's faulting their teaching then, because because at the end of the day, if someone does have their legal right to not give you ID,
Hmm.
you know, then why should that raise your suspicion if that's their legal right? And I give you a perfect example. I was flying. I was traveling from Las Vegas to Arizona, right? And I was flying down the highway. I mean, I was going at a speed that I could have went to jail for.
Hmm.
I could have absolutely went to jail. I was young and dumb, and I was flying down there. I was trying to get there as quick as I possibly could, right? And so, a cop, unbeknownst to me, a cop was following me for a good little while. Right? They had their lights very low. I thought it was just a regular car behind me, right? But then I saw them start zooming up behind me, and I was like, it's a cop. They flashed their lights, and I pulled right over, right? And this is where I talk about the discretion, right? He could have easily said, step out of the car, sir. Could have easily did that. Yeah, and with how fast I was driving, well within his right, I'm sure. Right? He chose to look at me and talk to me. Right? You know, he grabbed my license, of course, and registration. Right? It was a rental, so the registration really didn't matter for that. You could see it was a rental the way the license plates were. But he grabbed my license. And of course, after he ran it, I'm sure he saw this guy's never been in trouble for anything. Mm-hmm. So he came back, right? And with the warning of, hey, slow down. There's animals that do pop out here. You do have a random deer or whatever. I forgot what animal actually is, right? And if you hit them going at the speed you're going, you're sure to have a very bad day, mm-hmm. Right? So, that was a situation where, he used his discretion because he could immediately just took me to jail. He could immediately just said, forget all that. I don't care he's been a law-abiding citizen. Just no, that's it. It's done for. Right? But he looked at the whole me. He looked at me. Right? And in return, of course, I didn't give him any lip. I knew I had done wrong. Mm-hmm. I knew I had done wrong, and I just complied with whatever he asked. But here's where it got. He asked if he did ask if I could step out of the car and if he could search it. Right? He asked me that, and I turned and I asked him, "Do I have to do that?" And he says to me, well, you don't have to, Oh, okay. No, I need to get over there and he could have easily trumped up suspicion because I had a completely empty. It's hard because I had a completely empty van. I had even laid down all the seats because I was moving from Arizona back to Las Vegas. So I was actually going to clean out the apartment I had out there in Arizona and to actually move the stuff in. So I had taken down all the seats and had everything laid out so I could, once I get there, I could start packing immediately.
Like you moving keys.
Exactly. On one hand, I could see maybe that's suspicious. On the other hand, I'm like, why would I put all these seats down if I do have keys under here? Why wouldn't I leave it, regular? Why would I do this? That'd be dumb. But he looked around and he said, okay, well, you're free to go. Just be careful. And again, I have to think he used his discretion to go, the guy hasn't been in trouble unless he's a mastermind. Right. And just have been able to evade police. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. Instead of just saying no, you can't, I asked him. Mm-hmm. And this is, I've had this kind of interaction with cops before. I asked, instead of just flat out saying, no, you can't search my car, I asked him, do I have to? That's something I have to do? Mm-hmm. He said, no. Mm-hmm. And it totally now, maybe.
Like you all made a decision together.
Now, maybe this whole thing would have shifted had I just said no.
Right.
No, I don't want you to search my vehicle. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe that whole thing just shifts, and maybe it's like, that's reasonable suspicion. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's how crazy this whole thing gets. Just one little question I threw the whole thing out of balance for him. Right. And he was like, well, I guess I will just let him go. Mm-hmm. I had
Mhm.
another situation when I came to visit when I was still living in Las Vegas. I came to visit, right? You were actually picking me up from the hostess food thing, and they gonna call
Mhm.
the police saying I think somebody out here trying to case our hostess food, our hostess food store. The police rolled up on me, and before I could say a word, they had searched me, pat me down, and took my wallet.
Mm.
Before I said a word, that's how quick they did it, right? So it comes down to, you're standing out here, we don't know what you're doing. Why are you standing out here? Asking one simple question. Is it illegal for me to stand here?
Hmm.
They looked at each other. They were like, no, it's not illegal. Oh, okay. Turned my ass around. I turned my ass around and was waiting on you to come pick me up. I was like, I'm done with the conversation. But just that little question. And of people who are listening to this, especially black people, especially black men who keep getting into these altercations, think about asking questions. Think about asking very simple questions. When they ask for the ID, throw them off and say, I don't know, I mean, do I really need to give you ID? I mean, what what makes a person have to give an ID? And they'll probably still tell you you do,
Mhm.
right? But you can word the question in a way where you did not consent, right? And when you don't consent, now you have a lawsuit later.
Mhm.
Now you have a lawsuit later. They lied to me and told me I had to present it. They misrepresented the law,
Mhm.
right? So I don't know. Anyway, circle back around. These cops go crazy because there's a moment in that video where the cop went nuts on the guy when they had sit him down on the
See,
step.
I actually didn't even see the video. I just read the article about it.
Oh, see, there's a moment in the video where
Mhm.
the other officer,
Mhm.
the one who didn't really talk much in the video, he just starts yelling at the guy. When an officer tells you, identify yourself and blah blah, you just gotta do it. Something of that nature. And we're totally used to seeing this in many videos. Like I said, they
Right.
go crazy if you tell
Mhm.
them you're not showing them ID.
Yeah, you can't do that in the state where he doesn't have a legal requirement to show identification, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he's got all the grounds for a lawsuit as far as I could tell. Come
But
on
see,
now.
they turn it right around and they use it as a suspicion.
Mhm.
They turn it right around on you. That refusal, even though it's your legal right, they
Yep.
turn it around and
If
use
you're
it as
black,
suspicion.
and
Right?
that law's not for you, sir.
Yeah, pretty
that's
much.
that's for good law-abiding white folks. You,
Yeah,
on the other hand, you need to give up your name.
pretty much.
Craziness. Yeah. Well, this has been interesting. I hope all of you all enjoyed this episode today. I really enjoy going through these topics. We're still working on the back end to get some things
Oh,
up
wait,
and
wait,
running for
wait!
you.
Before you do, hey, folks, the links to these things that we talked about, the articles, they'll all be in the description of the video in case you want to circle around and see some of the background that we looked at on some of these topics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Was just getting into that. Thank you, Hudson. And thank you to everyone listening today. I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic evening. Take care.
Peace out.